Body. This is a video provided by Profiler Astroanalysis at Astro Profiles on X, formerly known as Twitter. The title is Hallmarks of Survivalism and Existential Crises, looking at the past to anticipate the future. Scrolling down. The Hallmarks of Survivalism and Existential Crises. Relatively recent history provides a significant insight into modern era threat that is perceived as existential, and therefore generating themes of survivalism. Planetary patterns are evident in aligning with such eras. By looking to the past, we can also track the future potentials that evoke hallmarks of such collective themes. War, conflict, food security, climate, drought, disease are top of mind in the 2020s, though all have featured cyclically in the past. The current level feels very intense, but perhaps the most profound issues to gain traction in this century involve the status of humans in an increasingly technological or machine world, and how that development aligns with the push to know more of our genetic origins and our relationship with advanced capacity species that are increasingly revealed as a presence on planet Earth. In periods when cardinal group themes precede and merge with fixed themes, there is a high potential for widespread conflict to be a major outcome. Primal instincts involving bloodlines, protection and survival coalesce when there is an intense accumulation of cardinal and fixed factors, including outer planets, lunar nodes and eclipses. The question is the tipping point. What mix of cardinal and fixed involving outer planets, lunar nodes, eclipses is involved in breakout events? Cardinal themes emphasize a protective structure based on ancestry, blood, heritage, carried through parents, immediate and extended family and partners. Bloodline and related cultural structures of linked heritage are both of significance. Cardinal signs activate the instincts that fixed signs are seeking to express. Aries is personal identity, linked to family and ancestry. Asserting and benefiting from personal family connections supports individual survival. Cancer is family identity, linked to ancestry. Family is intended to nurture, raise, and support offspring, and extend the lineage through strength-building genetic mixing. Libra is partnership bonds that enable reproduction and enlargement of family structures. Partnerships model family-based patterns related to the raising of children. Partnerships, by protecting the family structure, contribute to heritage. Capricorn reflects ancestry and heritage over many generations. The maintenance and protection of traditions expressed through family and partnerships creates an enduring identity for extended family to feel supported by. Fixed themes emphasize survival, life and death issues, food security, bodily maintenance and threats to bodily maintenance, shelter, climate threats, income security, and the integrity of society as a shared nation-based entity. Existential threats involve severe level survival challenges and extend into issues impacting the continuity of human civilization. and the sustaining of the human species. The astrological fixed sign group, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, applies to issues around survival and life-death existential issues at a more intense instinctual level. Taurus relates to the fundamental physical needs, but also all ways we maintain our body. Taurus is all aspects of form, the land itself, all classes of animal, the plants and crops we consume. Leo survival is through love, attention and appreciation. Human infants and primates left without the warm rays of Leo nurturing fail to thrive and are more at risk of disease and death. This is very personal survival, and the ego becomes exaggerated when the Leo basics are deficient. Scorpio is attuned to the extreme survivalist life-death battle, capable of using whatever means of control is available. Charisma, chemistry, emotional control, brutal force, or lethal violence. The sex drive is intended to attract mates in order to sustain the species. Aquarius survival is based in friends, networks, groups, community, brotherhoods, sisterhoods, team spirit, teamwork, the common good, trusted allies with shared interests and compatible ideologies. Such people value belonging rather than solo existence. This is a collective or tribal signifier. Survival can involve individual or collective competing, outshining, physical prowess, and lethal power. This has occurred since forever, both within tribes and between tribes. And overall, now in the world, the biggest tribes are either related to ethnicity, nationality, or nation state, but the same dynamics occur at every scale. Existential level threats are closely aligned with Scorpio Taurus on a bodily level and Leo Aquarius in the context of society, culture, and civilization. There are no unipolar signs, meaning no sign functions alone. No zodiac sign functions exclusively and independently of the other three related signs in their assigned modality group. When discussing the fixed signs, each has a high potential to express through the polar opposite. For example, Aquarius through Leo, and high potential to express through signs at right angles. For Aquarius, this then includes Taurus and Scorpio. Uranus in Aquarius is an example that can be seen to function through multiple fixed expressions during World War I. World War. When world war arises, this can engage multiple tribes in alliances. Looking back to the early 1900s, we see the first example of a large enough conflict to be designated a world war that was in essence multi-tribal on both sides. The significant planetary transits through fixed signs point to the survivalist existential themes aroused during both major world wars. Pre-World War I, if we look back in the decade beginning 1904, given that World War I began 1914. Looking back from 1904 in advance of World War I, outer planets in cardinal signifiers, Cancer, Aries, Capricorn and Libra, were emphasized. 1902 to 1915, Neptune transited Cancer. In 1910, the transition to fixed began, with Jupiter in Scorpio and Saturn in Taurus. 1913, Pluto began to enter Cancer, remaining until June 1939. extending the significance of cardinal themes around family lineage to suffer from world wars. In other words, the cardinal energy was relevant to both world wars. August 1914, by month's end, 2 outer planets were fixed and 3 cardinal. The lunar nodes were fixed, then cardinal, in the decade before 1914. In the period 1905 to 1908, and in the period 1910 to 1913. The World War I period, 1914 to 1918, began with significant developments in June 1914, setting off a chain of events leading officially to World War I beginning July 28, 1914, under a fixed sun and 2 fixed and 2 cardinal outer planets. In this war period, fixed and cardinal alternated in dominance of outer planets, with fixed more dominant in the latter half. That's like 2016 to 2018. June 1914, Pluto was newly in Cancer. Neptune was late in Cancer. Jupiter and Uranus in Aquarius. A volatile synergy, an outbreak of lethal violence against Austrian royals, led to World War I. Several planets in Cancer at the June 28, 1914 assassination provided emotionally based fuel drawn from personalized bloodline, being family or hereditary lineage. September 1914, Neptune in Leo briefly, as Neptune was transitioning from Cancer, so a crossover period of retrogrades was not fully complete until May 1916, within World War I period. Uranus remained past World War I until January 1920, and Neptune also endured. Neptune in Leo remained from within the World War period, 1916, right up to 1929. So there we have 2 outer planets fixed, linking the period from World War I up to the conditions that led to World War II. Leo expressed through the collapse of 4 European imperial dynasties during World War I. This marks the end of an old world order, with power shifting to leaders sourced from within society, in other words, non-royals. Aquarius also expressed as the spark that initiated World War, involving a large sector of everyday society. Then in 1917, through the Bolshevik Revolution, and in European society becoming destabilized. Mid-1916 to mid-1917, Jupiter transited Taurus with some months of retrograde in Aries, extending that energy surge from the earlier Jupiter in Aries beginning February 1916. Cardinal sign primal instincts around bloodlines fuel survivalist behaviours expressed through fixed signs. October 1916, Saturn in Leo, briefly in transition from Cancer. June 1917 to August 1919, Saturn fully in Leo. 1918 February, the global flu pandemic began with Saturn and Pluto in Leo and Uranus in Aquarius. 1918 November 11, World War I ended. 1920, by then Jupiter and Neptune were in Leo. Saturn in Leo can express as cold-hearted qualities aggravated by Pluto and Leo's darker motives, including power, control at any cost. Post-war Jupiter and Neptune, expressing through Leo, have much more positive and healing potentials. So there you can see from the World War I period, including the decade in advance from 1904, was absolutely dominated by cardinal and fixed energies. So now we look at World War II, starting again from a pre-World War II period, to see what was happening then. In the decade prior to World War II, and beginning in 1929, since World War II started 1939, the nodes in Taurus Scorpio were relevant to the market crash that later emerged as a Great Depression. In the first half of 1929, Jupiter in Taurus and Neptune in Leo added to fixed sign themes. By year's end, cardinal themes came through Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. By 1931, cardinal themes arose through Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. 1930s cardinal and fixed themes alternated in dominance through the 5 outer planets. In addition, Chiron, transiting Aries and Taurus, then Cancer and Leo, extended from post-World War I to late World War II. So this is 1919 to 1943. So within that period, Chiron obviously left and went into mutable. It would have gone into mutable, of course, after Taurus, and Virgo after Leo. But the main signs that dominated in that period, linking World War I to World War II, was Chiron and fixed, or starting with cardinal, then fixed, then cardinal, then fixed, reinforcing the theme that's being followed. So 1929 to 31, 33 to 36, and 38 to 41, during these years, lunar nodes were fixed, then cardinal, dominating the approach decade and the onset periods of World War II. So it's not only the outer planets, it's not only Chiron, it's also the lunar nodes following the same pattern. Then we get to World War II itself, 1939 to 1945, beginning in September of 39, at a time when Saturn, Uranus and Pluto occupied 3 fixed signs, 2 in Taurus and 1 in Leo. Extra fuel being provided by Jupiter in Aries, cardinal, a signifier of big war or widespread aggression. In 1940, 1941, there were 4 outer planets in fixed signs, reducing then to 2 outer planets by late war, 1943, 1944. And then by war's end, there was only 1 planet in a fixed sign. So fixed signs definitely dominated by the 1940s and dwindled as the energy for war lessened. The lunar nodes, which regressed through the 30-degree range, were emphasised at their endpoint, 0 Scorpio Taurus, when Britain declared war against Germany in 1939. So that's just a reference to how the beginning point and the end point are always powerful. And it just so happened that it was, in terms of a nodal transit, it was the end point of the nodes in fixeds that aligned with the start of World War II. So 1940 July saw a large accumulation in Taurus. There was Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto was continuing in Leo through the war period. 43, July, Jupiter transited Leo for a year to July 44. Taurus, being Earth, is very much about land and territory in addition to the food supply issues that arose. Food supply issues were like a side effect of war, but obviously land and territory were a dominant theme of war. Leo is not only love of country and patriotism, but also the determined egos leading the call and directing frontline soldiers to engage in warfare. Leo transited by Pluto and Jupiter, has high potential for entitlement issues based on uncontrolled ego, and therefore can express itself, as we saw, through narcissistic control behaviours and dictators, of which there were a few in World War II. The 2020s overlay. Okay, so having looked at 2 world wars, it's important to see what can they point to in this era, and this analysis looks especially at cardinal and fixed accumulations again. If mutable are noteworthy, they'll be mentioned if they're unusually dominant. But as you'll see, that doesn't happen. The selected cardinal decade begins in 2010 and it's up to 2019 inclusive. So the lunar nodes in that time frame were cardinal from 2010 to 11, and then went fixed, then cardinal between 2012, 2015, and then 2017, 2019. The cardinal accumulation, 2010, 2019 inclusive. This decade features Jupiter in Aries, Uranus in Aries, Saturn in Libra, Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter in Libra, Saturn in Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn, Chiron in Aries from April 2018, Jupiter in Capricorn from December 2019. So you can see there's a lot of cardinal, that's why I've called it the cardinal accumulation, in the decade before 2020. So we know Jupiter moves fast, so of course Jupiter has 3 entries there, but that's added to and reinforced by Uranus, Saturn, Chiron. As far as fixed sign signifiers in that same decade, Jupiter entered Scorpio October 2017, Uranus ended Taurus May 2018. So you can see in the decade in advance, it was a cardinal dominated period before we get to 2020. Now the COVID pandemic era was underway as of late 2019. So you'll remember that there was the Spanish flu in the World War I period. Interesting that a pandemic featured in both that period and this period. By January 2020, Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto accumulated in Capricorn. March. Now, what I want to point out here is all the dates highlighted in red represent fixed sign accumulation. So anywhere where there's a sea of red, you know that's going to be very strong. Or where there's just the dates in black, it's more likely to be the cardinal specifically. So I've gone through all of the 2020s, including outer planets, nodes, and yeah, I'll just check if there's anything else, but at the moment we'll just say outer planets and nodes. So I've put when planets enter and when they leave. So I'm not going to read out this whole list because it's very lengthy, but it's very detailed in showing the accumulation of fixed and cardinal, and it goes into the 2030s. So let's start just whizzing through looking at the 2020, see the early 2020s there. The fixed energy is there, but it's not like absolutely dominant, because we've got cardinal sprinkled in. When we get to 2024, we've got a sprinkling of fixed in red, and then the brown entries are all the cardinals. And in that column where the signs are mentioned, the fixed signs are all in a bluey green, and the mutables are in that hot pink because there's not many of them, so they stand out. And it's usually when it's an exit, like here, leaving a fixed sign into a mutable. Right, so then we get to 26, 7, again, bit of fixed there, bit of cardinal. So it's quite mixed through the 2020s. And so we have to now look at, I'm just going to separate that out, into the 2030s. So I've made a summary here because it's worth emphasizing the main points. In the 2030s, looking at 2030-37, the dominant modes in this period, 2030 is very fixed, 2031 very fixed, 2032 mixed, fixed cardinal, 2033 very cardinal, 34 cardinal. Now 35 to 37 are very fixed. So just remembering here, 2033 to 4, the cardinal emphasis is on ancestry, bloodlines, heritage, and when there's any challenge or threat to those, this activates the instincts that are expressed through fixed emphasis, as in 2035 to 2037. This is when a sense of existential crisis and survivalist behaviours become aroused, because if you feel your ancestry, your bloodline, your family literally is under threat, then people can get very passionate about surviving. 2035 to 2036 shows a significant fixed accumulation. So that central period there, 35 to 36, May 2035 to May 36 has the most fixed planets, 3, and November 2035 is a hot point. In other words, a lot of fixed energy. So the red dates again. So here we look at the 2030s. Scroll that up. So if we're looking for red ones, you can see there's a gradual build-up. There's quite a bit of red there. Fixed signs here in 32. Not so much in 2033, it's more cardinal. and 34, more cardinal. Now we come to 35, 36, 37. Look at 20, 35, 36. Very fixed. And it's involving Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. Yeah, I've put in some eclipses in this column too. Eclipse in Aquarius, nodes are fixed. Yeah, another lunar eclipse fixed. Node Saturn, Pluto, solar eclipse Leo, lunar eclipse Aquarius. Yeah, see, a lot going on, but it's mostly concentrated in this 35 to 36 period. So fixed, look at it. Every entry there except, well, that's 2037. So it's out of this fixed period, that 35 to 36. Yeah, extremely fixed. And that is, to me, a very strong hallmark of people in survival mode, which doesn't sound great. But from my position, it's better to understand in advance. If things are pointing to this, when the cardinal energies accumulate, which is specifically 33 and 34, starting, see there's fixed energy there, but it's not as strong. But then the cardinal comes in, blending with the fixed in 32. 33, 34, all these bloodline themes are very strong for 2 years. And then we've got, especially 35, 36, 2 years of very fixed. To me, that's very intense to have those two so repeated in the 2030s. So I'm thinking that this is stuff to be aware of. And as I say, I can contact me through astroprofiles on X by direct message if you're interested in the if you're interested in the content, transcript of it, and I'll make that available at a modest cost, because all this takes hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So I'd like some sort of acknowledgement of that. Anyway, I don't have a young throat, so my throat's needing some water, and I will end this now and save it for uploading to YouTube.